it is important to think about the distribution and marketing quite early. Like people are able to build basic prototypes of things very quickly. There's no defensibility there, but there's defensibility around a story that people love or a brand that people connect with.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Founder Fridays, where we sit down with builders who've been in the trenches to talk shop, product design, and the real lessons that founders usually do not put on a pitch deck. I'm Anastasia Crew. I run all things startups at Notion, and I'm super excited to sit down today with Brian Lovin, who's a product designer at Notion, previously founder of Campsite, an app that combined postdocs, calls, and chat to enable thoughtful team collaboration. So I'm super excited to sit down with you today, Brian.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
I'd love to kind of think about all the many different hats that you wore over the years. The designer, the founder, the podcaster, the investor. Like, what is it through line that connects it all?
Uh, I don't know why, but I just really like making software. And I didn't even really realize it was making software, but I think in the early days when I was, maybe in middle school, it was just tinkering, just making little side projects, trying to make little businesses. I don't think any part of my career has really been premeditated. It's all been quite, uh, maybe not spontaneous is the word, but um, just curiosity seems to pull me down different paths. And so that means trying lots of side projects. It means trying startups, big companies. But I guess just making software is that through line. I like I just like uh, the feedback loop of building software. I find very addicting. I didn't even know that product design was a job you could have until I was almost out of college. But my interest in computers and software started way earlier. So it's probably in middle school. Um, Neopets was a very popular website at the times. Like you raise these little virtual pets and you can have your little profile. And one of the interesting things that product did was let you customize your profile, and you could customize it by writing your own CSS, which for me, a middle schooler, was like this intimidating code, brackets, semicolons kind of thing. And so that was, I think, the first time I ever had this end user programming experience on someone else's product. And it's just fun. And I don't think you realize you're designing, like you're just tinkering around with stuff. But I wanted the profiles to look good. And so I had a desire towards some, I don't know, aesthetic sense. And then where it shifted to more building tools or apps, I got interested in WordPress and creating blogs. And I think the real evolution for me was I ran a music distribution website. It was kind of like a college music blog where we would share music from up and coming artists who were giving it away for free. And I ran that for 5 years. And towards the end, I realized I actually didn't care that much about the music itself, but I really cared about the experience that people were having browsing and listening to the songs. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about, okay, what's the ideal music discovery downloading flow for this blog? And that side project was my portfolio piece that got me my first product design job at a startup, which was literally the first time I'd heard that product design was even a thing.
Fast forward when you were on the path to build Campsite, what was that problem that you were solving, either for yourself or for the community, that you're like, Campsite it is?
Yeah, I'll tell the story of Campsite by telling the origin story, like why I even care about this problem space. And it goes back to I worked at Facebook in 2015, and at Facebook they have an internal tool there called Pixel Cloud, and uh, you get access to Pixel Cloud, and you get to see the history of how this thing came to be. So Pixel Cloud was very formative for me of like, oh, this is a great way to work as a designer, to have this sense of visibility, to be able to see what people have tried in the past. thought, like, man, what if every team could have access to that experience that I had at Facebook? This open culture of sharing, this remix culture, this timeline of progress and thinking. And so that was the early nugget of Campsite. Like, how do we externalize that feeling, that type of working environment for design teams?
So you wanted to bring that tool to the community, to the rest of the world. How did you get to that MVP?
Yeah. Well, started out, we tried to build it as an internal tool at GitHub. And, um, over the years, I've also learned to program. And so what I did is I started working on this as, okay, let's take PixelCat and externalize it. I started on that in the spring one year, nights and weekends, just a side project. And then that summer, I just started sharing it publicly. Hey, I'm working on this thing. Does anyone want to try it? And get some interest and see if this is a thing that has legs, create a wait list, people sign up for the wait list. And then by that fall, I felt like I had enough momentum to work on it full time.
So you ideally understood all the pain points, but what was that kind of feedback loop that you were looking from the community that helped you iterate on it, on the product itself?
I mean, in the early days, you just want any kind of feedback, right? Like, does anybody care enough about this to report a bug? Like, that's your first sign that, okay, maybe you're onto something, is someone cares to send you a message. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, try lots of things, try them quickly, share it with the world or with whoever happens to be a customer right now, and just keep that iteration loop going. So I remember that first year, I got into a really good rhythm where, like, Monday, Tuesday, I would just have calls with customers or potential customers. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, no calls, just build, try things, and then rinse and repeat each week. And if you do that for a few months, I don't know, you kind of like end up with a product that's shaped by how people want to use it or the feedback you're getting from early adopters.
Yeah, totally. I mean, talking to your users is always key, even if you're even trying to validate in your idea from like the early stages to when the product is already out in the market. Thinking more like zooming out and thinking about how you see like founders or PMs still thinking about product design. What is something that they still get wrong, in your opinion?
I think that there's uh, a pretty good cohort of, I don't know, call it like Silicon Valley minded PMs and engineers and founders that understand what a good designer can actually do for your business. But I think the vast majority of people still view design as like a coat of paint. How do we make this thing look good? And that is important. I think aesthetics matter. The way a product looks uh, can give it a sense of maturity, give it a sense of trustworthiness. Um, I think it's just nice to look at pretty things. So that's a one part of design, but I think there's too many people that still think that's what design is only good at. And I actually I don't really blame a lot of people for seeing design in that way as something that's a little bit fluffier, like, oh, it's just the coat of paint. I think there are so many designers who can do both visuals and so much more, like, actually think about talking to customers, driving product strategy, how the thing should even work. I think there's a lot of technical designers, um, and more designers are becoming more and more technical these days, especially with the help of AI. At the very least, I'm seeing more and more designers just being like, okay, well, I don't have a seat at the table, so I'm just gonna like build my own table because they're just learning how to code or learning how to start their own startups or side projects and being able to run it end to end. And one, I think that's just awesome inherently that people are building their own things. I think we're in the golden age of personal software.
How do you balance that fast iteration process and design craft, having that very high quality bar versus moving very fast?
Yeah, I think a lot of people view these as opposites, like there's tension here. I don't agree. I think if you just build a handful of things very well, you can move very, very quickly and be good by default, right? Like, apps are not that complicated. You need, from a UI point of view, there's like buttons, drop downs, dialogues, some text, I don't know, sidebars. Like there's just a handful of things, and spend your time getting those things right as like actually composable little components that can construct any type of user flow you need. Uh, and then you move really, really fast. And if the underlying things are good, like you are a high craft product. Your buttons look good out of the box and you're not reinventing them every time you implement a button, then your product's going to feel nice and tactile and clear to use. So I actually think if you just try and get the basics right, you don't have to make this trade off. You can move very fast, and the things that you're moving fast on are good by default.
Where were you in your journey where you like, Notion, interesting product? What drew you to Notion, and what was the story?
Yeah, well, so Campsite, the story I told originally, was this tool for design teams to share work in progress, get better feedback, that kind of thing. We worked on that for a little over a year, and it wasn't quite working. There was a handful of people that really loved it. We heard from design teams that at least the leaders really wanted to use it, but the individual contributors didn't always feel comfortable posting. So for our second year, we pivoted into more of a general purpose team communication tool. I think we had a good product that a handful of people really, really loved, but distribution and getting people to switch to this type of product is incredibly challenging. It's more of a sales, go to market adoption. Like that is a different set of problems. So anyways, we worked on that for a year, and you look at Notion, and in a way we were competing with Notion, but Notion has the same philosophy. Like, hey, tool bloat, SaaS sprawl is crazy. Can we give people the set of primitive building blocks that they can build the tools for themselves to work effectively in one place? And they're doing it at scale. And so you start talking to Notion, you're like, hey, we have some good ideas over here, and we're good at making software. How about we just like deploy that to 100 million people tomorrow over here? And that sounded really exciting.
How is it designing a Notion for such a flexible and horizontal product is for you and how you approach that? How is it different?
So in many ways, I still feel like I'm absorbing the philosophy, the way that Notion views the world. Because in many ways, I don't view the world in the same way. I just listed all of the things that I agree with, and where we had overlap with Notion. Um, but I think my whole background has come from building more opinionated, like verticalized types of tools. And so you come to Notion and say, well, okay, there's going to be a student using this for taking meeting notes and an enterprise using it for project tracking. And you build some abstraction to try and solve both of those problems. Like that seems crazy. This seems way too hard. We should just make a really good note-taking tool for students and a really good project tracker for enterprises. So, anyways, all that to say, I think it's very challenging, which is also why it's fun. Like this is hard work to thread that needle of considering who it's for, but finding the right abstraction where it can feel intuitive and easy to use for both of those really different types of use cases. And those are two of like hundreds of use cases. So, anyways, I think the answer to your question is I am just absorbing as much as I can. Um, and then of course I'm on projects and building things, and the joy of building things is just showing it to customers and getting their reaction.
What are the certain systems or maybe rituals that you use to, maintain the design quality, iterate on certain things that maybe you can share with other designers that they can try and, follow the systems or implement the systems that you found useful?
Yeah, I think it's the same as everywhere, big company, small company. I think you just gotta work in small teams with people that trust each other, sip quickly, um, share what you're working on every day. Like, don't go off into a cave for a week and surprise people with stuff that they didn't expect. Um, so, I mean, on the design team, I think it boils down to like, are we sharing work? Is there visibility into what other people are working on? Are we aligned on, um, I don't know, the way things look and feel? Do we have a cohesive feeling product? I really like building and working within a culture that has sort of a remix mentality where if you notice somebody doing something really cool, there's permission and trust to say like, "Oh, can I like riff on that? Can I fork it and try a small variant?" And for people to be open-minded to that, like, I think it indicates a lot of trust, low ego. That's a really cool environment to be in. Um, and then what you wanna do for teams over time is help people move up. I call it like the fidelity gradient. You know, at the very low end, you have like a pencil sketch, and at the very high end, you're actually just shipping production code. And then somewhere in the middle is like Figma. And what you wanna do for every designer is be as high fidelity on that gradient as possible while still being able to move very, very fast. And then your craft progression as a designer is just about moving higher up the gradient while maintaining your current speed.
Are there certain tools that you'd be like, "This is my top tools that I'm using and highly recommend"?
Quad code is insane. I mean, if I just think if you're a designer who hasn't tried to make your own thing, like a non-technical designer, and you haven't tried to build something, there's like no excuse anymore. I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with Claude because when it is wrong, it can be very annoying. But for the most part, it's my current favorite tool.
I've heard, I mean, I've seen, and I've tried all the tools. I'm not a technical person, and, like, it enables you to create things, whether it's like a prototype or like a small MVP, and then you can, maybe hand it off to a real expert and be like, "Can you actually build it off?" Right? But this is my vision. So I think that the enablement is amazing. But if you think about, like, the obviously you were a founder with a design background, right? What if they are founders building their startups or the products that do not have a design background? Like, what would be your advice for them? What they should be looking for in their first design hire?
I think it just depends. It depends on the type of product you're building, what stage you're at. You know, if you're a founder that also has the bravery to try AI tools to build your own thing, like it's not that hard to get a decent enough looking application today using AI tools. So what you actually want is like an entrepreneurial designer who's going to participate in the strategy of the thing. Like, what's the real problem we're solving? Are we solving it in an elegant way? It's not hiring someone to show up and put a coat of paint on your ideas. It's not about, um, yeah, just focusing purely on aesthetics. Like, you want someone to think about: Are we building the right thing? Are we showing it to customers often? Are we interpreting their feedback? In the right way, you know? I think when you're building early stage products, you might get lots of feedback that's very scattered. You might get 50 people asking for 50 different things, and designers are very good at synthesizing that and saying, "Okay, well, instead of building 50 things, I bet we could build this one thing that kind of solves the real crux of the problem for this type of person." I think designers are very good at that. So if you can trust somebody to do that and um, hopefully they have some aesthetic sensibilities and some curiosity about code. I think that's a killer first design hire.
As a founder, looking back, if you are to start today, whether it's a campsite, another company, what would you do differently? Especially in this AI era with so many more tools and capabilities and, you name it, at your disposal.
It is important to think about the distribution and marketing quite early. Like people are able to build basic prototypes of things very quickly. There's no defensibility there, but there's defensibility about around a story that people love or yeah, a brand that people connect with. So maybe spend more time on that. Um, I don't know, that one's tough because like, the thing still has to work, it still has to be a good product. One story, though, so we very early on decided to publish, changelog, and we published basically every week for 2 years, and I remember hopping on customer calls where they would tell me, "Oh, I've been following your changelog for a year. I just thought it was interesting. I didn't need the product then, but I'm interested in it now." And I think that was a very powerful tool for bringing people along for the ride, for giving people a sense of where you're going. And then I think the weekly changelog just gives people confidence to bet on you because they know you're going to make it better quickly, right? Like nobody wants to invest time in a tool that was last updated 2 years ago. That's not interesting. Do you want to invest in a tool that they're like, oh shit, they're getting really good really fast? Um, and so the simple way to do that is just write a changelog every week. It can be
Yeah.
small things, but like build this perception that uh, you are moving fast, you are responding quickly. It's getting better every week. And I think people get inspired by that and want to participate in that. And even if it's not in week one, maybe by week 50, people will sort of see the whole story coalescing, be like, okay, now I want to try it.
Totally. I think, like, that's a great advice to actually end on is, like, build in public, right? Design in public. Get that feedback, show your journey, like, share it, then, people do notice. Um,
I like that way of working. There's a million case studies of people who work the opposite way that have been very successful. Apple, of course. Um, I prefer working more openly and sharing early. So I think it can work both ways. This way
I
is
love
more
that.
fun.
Yeah, sounds like fun is important, right, for you
Yes.
on the journey, and I think a lot of founders
Yes.
sometimes do forget about that, right? Like, you building something you care about that you wanna bring to the world, and you should have some fun along the way. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Brian. It was really
Yeah.
awesome sit down with you, and I really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me.